It was the morning after Christmas, December 26, 1996, Boulder, Colorado. John and Patsy Ramsey woke up in their 15-room mansion and found a 3-page ransom note on the staircase. It demanded $118,000 for the safe return of their 6-year-old daughter, JonBenét. They called the police immediately, but JonBenét was never taken by a kidnapper. She was already dead, hidden in the basement of her own home. Nearly 30 years later, no one has ever been charged with her murder. No arrest, no conviction, no justice. The JonBenét Ramsey case became the most talked about unsolved murder in American history, and what investigators have uncovered in recent years may finally be changing that. JonBenét Patricia Ramsey was born on August 6, 1990, in Atlanta, Georgia. Her name was a combination of her father's name, JonBenét Ramsey, and her mother's name, Patricia. A child who was, by every account, completely adored. Her father, John Ramsey, was the CEO of Access Graphics, a computer services company that had recently crossed $1 billion in annual revenue. The family was wealthy, successful, and by every outward measure, perfect. Her mother, Patsy Ramsey, had been Miss West Virginia in 1977. She understood the world of pageants, of beauty, of performance, and she introduced her daughter to that world early. By age 6, JonBenét had competed in 10 child beauty pageants. She had won titles including Little Miss Colorado and America's Royale Miss. On stage, she performed with a confidence that seemed far beyond her years, singing, dancing, smiling for judges in elaborate costumes and full-stage makeup. To the world that watched her compete, she was a tiny star. But on the night of December 25, 1996, in the bedroom of their Tudor Revival mansion in Boulder, someone ended her life. She was 6 years old. The Ramseys spent Christmas Day with friends, attending a neighbor's party before returning home late that evening. Patsy later told investigators she put JonBenét to bed around 10 p.m. The little girl was tired. The family had a flight the next morning, a Christmas vacation to their home in Michigan. John and Patsy went to sleep. The house went quiet. At approximately 5:52 a.m. on December 26th, Patsy came downstairs and found 3 handwritten pages on the staircase, the ransom note. It was unusual in almost every way. At 2.5 pages, it was one of the longest ransom notes in FBI history. It demanded exactly $118,000, a specific figure that matched John Ramsey's recent Christmas bonus almost to the dollar. It referred to John by name. It warned the family not to contact authorities. Patsy called 911 immediately. Police arrived and treated the home as a kidnapping scene. Family friends were called. Victim advocates arrived. Hours passed with detectives and civilians moving freely through the house. Then, at approximately 1 p.m., a detective asked John Ramsey to search the house for anything unusual. John went to the basement. He opened the door to a small, rarely used storage room, a room police had failed to search during their initial sweep of the house that morning. Inside, he found his daughter. JonBenét's wrists were bound above her head with a cord. A piece of duct tape covered her mouth. She had been strangled with a garrote, a cord tightened with a wooden stick. The medical examiner would later determine she had also suffered a skull fracture, an 8.5-inch crack consistent with a blow to the head. John Ramsey carried his daughter's body upstairs. The crime scene, already compromised by hours of visitors, was now irrevocably contaminated. It was a failure of evidence preservation that would haunt this investigation for decades. The Boulder Police Department, a small force unaccustomed to high-profile homicides, allowed the crime scene to be walked through by dozens of friends and visitors before it was properly secured. Critical evidence was lost, potential fingerprints destroyed, and then the media arrived. Within days, JonBenét's pageant photographs were broadcast across every television network in America. The elaborate costumes, the stage makeup, the sequins. The images were striking, confusing, and deeply uncomfortable. America stared at them and formed opinions. Suspicion fell immediately on her parents. The ransom note had been written inside the house on Patsy's own notepad with a pen found in the home. Handwriting analysts debated for decades whether Patsy had written it. The Ramseys hired lawyers, gave limited interviews, and cooperated selectively with investigators, choices that the press interpreted as guilt, but that any attorney would have recommended. They maintained their innocence completely. For years, America didn't believe them. Meanwhile, investigators pursued hundreds of other leads. A convicted pedophile named Gary Oliva, who lived nearby, was scrutinized. In 2006, a man named John Mark Carr sensationally confessed to the murder, only for DNA testing to prove he had never been in contact with JonBenét at all. Then in 2008, the Boulder District Attorney made an announcement that changed everything. New DNA testing had found an unknown male's genetic material on JonBenét's clothing, DNA belonging to no one in the Ramsey family, no known visitor, no one investigated. The statement formally cleared John and Patsy Ramsey as suspects. Patsy Ramsey had died of ovarian cancer 2 years earlier, in 2006. She never lived to see her name cleared. The DNA evidence has become the cornerstone of the modern investigation. It was found in 2 locations, under JonBenét's fingernails and on the waistband of her underwear. Both samples came from the same unknown male. Neither sample matched John Ramsey, any family member, or any of the hundreds of people who passed through that house. This was an intruder. For years, investigators searched CODIS, the FBI's national DNA database, for a match. They found nothing. Then in 2023, investigators announced they were using genetic genealogy, the exact same technology that caught the Golden State Killer in 2018, to identify the unknown DNA. If you watched our Zodiac Killer video, you already know how this works. Genetic genealogy compares crime scene DNA against consumer ancestry databases, services like 23andMe or Ancestry.com, to find distant relatives of the unknown suspect. Investigators then build family trees and narrow down the candidates. It is slow, meticulous, painstaking work, but it has solved cases that sat cold for 40 years. As of 2024, the Boulder Police Department confirmed the investigation remains active. No suspect has been named publicly, but investigators have stated clearly the DNA points to an intruder, someone who entered that home on Christmas night and has never been identified. The case is not cold, it is moving. After nearly 30 years, this case still carries questions that have no answers. How did the intruder enter? The home had multiple entry points, including a basement window with a broken latch that John Ramsey himself had used months earlier after forgetting his key. Scuff marks were found on the wall below that window. Why $118,000? That precise figure matched John Ramsey's Christmas bonus almost exactly. This was not a random number. Someone had researched this family's finances. Who wrote the ransom note? After 28 years of analysis by the best handwriting experts in the country, no definitive answer. What is known, it was written inside the house before JonBenét was killed, with materials found in the home. And the most haunting question, why did no one hear anything? A 15-room house, a 9-year-old son asleep nearby, parents upstairs, and somehow, someone committed this crime and left no witness who came forward. JonBenét Ramsey deserved better. Her family, whatever you believe about them, deserved answers. And America, which watched this case play out in real time and formed fierce opinions without evidence, perhaps owes the memory of a 6-year-old girl a more careful reckoning. The JonBenét Ramsey case changed America. It changed how we think about child pageants, about media coverage of crime, about the presumption of innocence, and about what happens when a tragedy becomes entertainment. It also revealed the cost of getting an investigation wrong from the very first hours, because the mistakes made on December 26, 1996 cannot be undone. But the DNA is still out there. The genetic genealogy investigation is still running. And somewhere, the person who walked into that house on Christmas night in 1996 is still alive or died having never faced justice. The question is whether modern science will find them before time does. What do you think happened? Who do you believe was responsible? Drop your theory in the comments. This case has divided America for 30 years, and I want to hear what you think. If you want me to go deeper on the ransom note analysis or the genetic genealogy investigation, subscribe and let me know. This case is far from over.